Hey guys, today we got some pretty cool stuff to test out. This is the Evolution 360 by Exploding Fish. It's a rod holder that rotates. It's pretty cool. It's got a push button right here, and you can just swivel it, so it points wherever you want on the boat. It's not fixed like it's always been. So it's really cool. So if we open it up, take a look-sees. Comes in this packaging. Pretty nice. Got a little marking template if you need it. So it's pretty good. I got the 30-degree bent ones. You can get 0, 15, or 30. Got this. It has this little rubber gasket thing, and it's got the bolts that you need. Now you can also buy it separate. You can get a plate that goes underneath. Like, think of it like a giant washer, and it's got the 3 holes, and that'll give you more stability depending on how strong your gunnels are. One thing to keep in mind is since these rotate, it's going to rotate like this, you need to kind of give it an angle, make sure that hole's wide enough so it can rotate, and make sure that you're not hitting the inside of your gunnel. It's got to have space to totally, wrap around like that. So feels pretty good, looks good. You can get a white or black insert. Feels well made, and we're gonna test it out, load it up, and try it on the water. So stay tuned. It's got a lot of good uses. Okay, first off, for trolling, you can fine tune your spread. You want to fine tune it and set lines up so they don't tangle. If your lines aren't tangled, then your lines are in the water, attracting fish, catching more fish. So it helps you to be more efficient on the water. One thing I really like to do, I've been wanting to test this for a while, haven't had a way unless I were to, manually mount a rod holder this way. And that's actually turning the rod holder, instead of straight out the boat, actually slightly forward of the boat, which normally would be really weird, except when you put a bent butt rod holder at this angle, the bent butt sticks further out the boat. So when I'm high-speed trolling for Wahoo, I can rotate my rod holders out farther, put the bent butt in at that angle, and they stick out further, and they're still lower, as opposed to just a straight one, straight rod going straight out. But even still, it's nice to be able to do it with a straight rod, okay? I can have them slightly angled back for trolling. When I want to bottom fish and want my rod pointing straight out, I just turn it. At the end of the day, when I'm coming in or docking, I'll just turn all my rods flush so I don't accidentally break a rod on a bulkhead or something. I put nets for lobstering in my rod holders. I'll put lobster loops, tickle sticks. I'll put camera mounts, and now I can fine tune everything, turn it the way I want it. If I'm in the boat, before a big trip and I want to do something with line, rig it up, I need to be able to grab the tip, I'll just swing it in. Or like with Wahoo, right? When I get to that weight, the trolling weight, normally if your rod's sticking out, well, it's kind of a pain. You got to reach over, but now, okay, I'm just going to turn it in. No one has to reach over. It's right there. Just grab it. So, throughout the day, you need to get to the rod tip, to check something. Or if you got like a tag line like I do, just swing the rod over, grab that tag line loop, put your rubber band in, hook it up to the outrigger, swing your rod back out. There's so many options and a lot of freedom to really customize, your fishing setup at the time. One thing to note is these are thicker than a normal rod holder, at least the ones I had. Wasn't an issue for me. I didn't find them to be a hazard or anything when I walk around the gunnels. They don't trip me up. Nothing bad like that, but just pointing it out so you know. My dad and I just finished installing 4 more of these on our boat. We previously had 2 that we were testing, and we really like how they've been working. So we wanted to show you guys how to install this because they are a little bit different than a normal rod holder. So the first thing to keep in mind when you're getting these rod holders is what you're going to use them for and how much space you have on your gunnel. You see, because these rotate, they need space underneath because, they're at an angle. So when they turn, they stick out one direction or the other underneath your gunnel. Now they have a couple different models. They have a 0 degree, a 15 degree, and a 30 degree, and they have 2 different lengths. We got the 30 degree with the 8.5 inch length. Now that being said, even on a wide gunnel, in the back like a Contender, the 30-degree rod holders can't rotate all the way around because they'll hit the side of the boat. I mean, physically the rod holders can rotate 360, but since the gunnel's not wide enough, they're going to hit the side. So depending on what you want, you may want the 15-degree or the 0. But in my case, I don't need to rotate 360 degrees. Most of the time I'm going 0 to 90. Really at most I might need 0 to 135 because I got this cool little Wahoo trolling trick I use with a bent butt. So that gives me plenty of rotation. It allows me to do anything I want to do. I don't need the full 360 degree. And I like that 30-degree bend because it does well with a bent butt, keeps it low. If I've got a straight butt and I turn it to the side, it sticks it out. So I personally like the 30-degree. But just think about what you want and what kind of boat you have. Normally when you install rod holders, you would probably use a hole saw, right? Depending on what angle you had, you'd either put it straight in the gunnel, go straight down, or if it was like a 15 to 30, you'd hold it at an angle and you drill down, in that angle, and then you'd stick your rod holder in, mount it to the side of the boat. Simple enough. Well, with the 360, Evolution 360 rod holder, instead of using a hole saw, you're going to want a jigsaw, and preferably one that you can angle. Like the one on ours, it has a little adjuster, and you can put it at 15 to like 60 degrees or anywhere in between. So that really came in handy. Since I have the 30-degree, I set mine a little above 30 because there's a little bit of blade deflection. And from there, when you cut it out, that will give you a good cone shape underneath. Because keep in mind, this could rotate anywhere. If you don't have that cone, it's going to hit, your gunnel if you have a thick gunnel. Like most fiberglass gunnels are probably pretty thick, and I've learned from experience, Contender makes a very good quality thick gunnel. Now you can buy an optional back plate too if you have thinner gunnels that might be kind of weaker. It doesn't come standard, but you can get that as well for your rod holders. Now if you have a boat probably like a Contender like mine, or maybe Yellowfin or some of them other ones, fiberglass thick gunnel, you may not have enough room for that. See, it comes with some 10mm bolts, but as I learned on the Contender, there were certain spots, it wasn't evenly the same thickness, and certain spots of that gunnel were actually so thick I couldn't fit that bolt on there. Now you may be thinking, okay, no big deal, I'll put bigger bolts on. Well, you can't do that with a rotating rod holder, because if the bolts are too long, that rod holder is going to hit the side of it when you try to rotate it. So you have a couple options. One is you can drill a hole, where that bolt goes, to kind of recess where the bolt is. Basically like a little pilot hole, kind of mounting hole. The other is you could use screws, just a heavy duty screw. Since the gunnel's that thick anyways, you'll get plenty of good bite. Maybe put a little 5200 around the screw when you put it in, just for that better gripping power. And that would probably work well, also. Now there are a couple ways you can install this. Obviously if you have a fresh gunnel that doesn't have rod holders, simple enough. Put a little pilot hole in there and then start with your jigsaw and drill around it. It comes with a template, so you're going to want to use that template to see how much space you need. It'll show you your circles depending on which model you have, and you use that to line it up and make sure you have room to rotate. Now the other option is you can replace existing rod holders with this rod holder, and that's what I did. It's not quite as easy. It took me a little bit of practice to get it figured out the easiest way to do it. Basically, mine were mounted in the center, and I needed to move them towards the outside of the boat so I'd have space for that rod holder to rotate. Now the good news is these rod holders are a little bit bigger and their mounting holes are wider apart. So you can actually drill up a little bit, make that hole bigger, and shift your rod holder towards the outside of the boat and still completely cover where your old rod holders were. So that's the good news with that. So just make sure you kind of line it up, get a feel for how you want it, and cut it that way. Now make sure you get that good bend, that good angle on your cuts. Remember, it has to be like a cone underneath. Otherwise, you might hit a few like rough spots when you try to rotate it, and it'll give you difficulty. So if you need to sand it down, cut it a little extra wide. You know, just keep that in mind. The big thing you're going to want to do is when you do cut it, set that rod holder in there and just test it. Lay it flat on the gunnel and then just slowly rotate it the way you want it to go. If it doesn't shift at all when you do it, then you're probably good to go. If it does, there might be some rough spots. You might need to cut that down a little bit. Now, Exploding Fish also makes a fixed rod holder, has the same footprint as the rotating rod holder, and I replaced some of my fixed ones up front with these Exploding Fish ones. And in this case, they fit right in the same hole. You know, you can do that with your typical hole saw, no problem. The only difference was because it has that wider, you know, footprint, the mounting holes are wider, so you just have to re-drill those. But the good thing is it'll cover up any of the old ones. You know, if you're worried that it's a different hole template or something, no big deal. It's gonna cover it up completely. So, you know, you can put these over your old ones if you want to. A couple other things to note about these rotating rod holders are that they're made of 316 marine grade stainless steel, and they come with a 5-year warranty. We now have 6 of these rotating rod holders installed on our boat. I'm really excited about testing them, especially with Wahoo season coming up. Got a lot of cool advantages. I'm excited about how I control better, maybe avoid some tangles, and then when I switch to bottom fishing or lobstering or whatever, I can use these rod holders in any different configuration to, you know, help me to fish and have a better time on the water. If you guys got any questions about these, you know, you want to bounce some ideas off of installing them, if you want to ask me about, you know, the boat you have and if I think they'll work, I'll be happy to help you out as best I can. Feel free to comment below, ask questions, and we'll do our best to get you going. Thanks for watching our video, and we'll see you guys next time.